And this is, oh, sorry, Angela, I meant to tell you to record. It just popped up and said that it was being recorded. So this is our second lift. We're going to try to do these once a quarter. And it's just a place for community members to come and gather together to learn about a healthy lifestyle and just to have a place to be with one another, to talk, especially in this unique time where we cannot necessarily meet together in person. So today we have Dr. Brian Asbill to come and speak with us today. And I just want to give you a little bit of background information about him. He's originally from Columbia, South Carolina. He graduated from Davidson College with a bachelor's in biology and then got his MD degree from the Medical University of South Carolina. He completed his internship and residency in internal medicine and met his wife as well at the University of Virginia. Followed up with a fellowship training at MUSC in 2001, and then joined Asheville Cardiology Associates up until 2020. While working at Asheville Cardiology, he completed board certification in clinical lipidology in 2008, received a certificate in plant-based nutrition from eCornell in 2013, and completed board certification in lifestyle medicine in 2017. He co-founded Ruckus Health in 2020, whose vision is to support people holistically in uncovering their innate ability to live in physical, mental, and emotional spiritual balance. He's married with 2 boys, ages 19 and 16, and enjoys cooking and eating, of course, as well, reading, hiking, and spending as much time outside as possible. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You are very welcome, and thanks for having me. And I already screwed that up, so hopefully we're back to where we were, and you can see the slides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do it without the speaker notes since I lost those as I unplugged something. So thank you guys for having me. It really is an honor to be here to talk with you guys about lifestyle medicine and supporting a cancer diagnosis. I'm so impressed with, I don't know a whole lot about Camp Bluebird other than what I've found out here since we started talking a couple of months ago, but the Pisgah Health Trust, the Blue Zones community down there in Brevard, really, really, really very impressive what you guys are doing down there. And so thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for having me meet with you today. So I love this quote, and Aura, maybe you've seen this quote before, that your health isn't everything, but without your health, everything is nothing. And I don't know who said that, so I've just always attributed that to a wise person. I think if you've had a diagnosis of cancer, you remember everything about that call. You remember where you were when you picked up the phone and talked to your doctor. I remember where I was when I talked to my doctor about my cancer diagnosis. And it really does sharpen your vision, that moment when you realize that your health is, without your health, really everything is nothing. It makes you focus on what really matters in your life. And I don't share this with everybody, but this seems like an appropriate group to share this with. I was actually a 3rd-year medical student when I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. I had seminoma, which is what Lance Armstrong had. And I knew enough as a 3rd-year medical student to not be completely freaked out about that and think that, this is a diagnosis that has a good prognosis. So I remember calling my dad as soon as I heard the news and was sure that that's what it was, and talking with him about whether or not I should share that information with my mom. And my dad saying, you have to share that with your mom. So sure enough, my mom came down and helped me navigate that whole experience from surgery and get things set up for me. The other thing that I remember as a 24-year-old male, I had radiation therapy after that. And it's hard to keep everything covered during radiation therapy when you're having radiation therapy for testicular cancer. And I remember also that the radiation therapist was really beautiful. And I hope that things were going to continue to go well with the radiation therapy. But it was one of those moments that I'll certainly never forget. So this is what I really want to talk about today. I want to talk about lifestyle as both the cause and the cure of our medical dilemma, how lifestyle medicine specifically can support you during and after a cancer diagnosis. And then at the end, I've just included some additional resources for consideration. I'm not going to talk much about those, but I wanted you to have them. Does everybody have a copy of the slides? I minimized you so I can't see you, but if you don't,
where would you have gotten a copy? Email?
We can. I'm happy to provide it. So we can talk about that after we're done, when I can see your faces again. But I'm happy to provide a copy. I want you to have those resources. I'm happy to share the slides. So this is data from the Center for Disease Control in 2019. No surprises here that heart disease and cancer were the top two causes of death in the United States in 2019. But you can also see, as you go down that list, some other diseases that could be lifestyle related. Chronic lower respiratory diseases, certainly more common in smokers, stroke, Alzheimer's disease, which my mother died of, which was really devastating, diabetes, influenza, pneumonia. When you look at the actual causes of death, what you see is that tobacco, poor diet, and physical inactivity, all very much lifestyle related, account for the vast majority of our causes of death. In fact, about 80% of our deaths are caused by our lifestyles. And this is what it really looks like today in the United States. It is very much a pills and procedures type approach today, and not just in the US, but in Western medicine in general. In 1990, we spent about $40 billion on prescription medications. In 2015, so only 25 years later, we spent $330 billion on prescription medications. In addition to that scary statistic, 800% increase in 25 years, we continue to see about 180,000 serious or fatal adverse drug reactions reported to the FDA. That has gone down some because we're now doing a better job of making sure that the right patient gets the right medication at the right time. A lot of the adverse drug reactions were the wrong medicine for the wrong patient. And some things have happened in the hospital system to make that much less likely to occur. But that number is still over 100,000 a year. That makes no sense to me. I think that a much better model of health is shown here with respects to Mark Brahman. Mark Brahman is a colleague in the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, also board certified in lifestyle medicine, as am I, as is Aura. And I'm not saying with my previous comments that pills and procedures do not have a place. They absolutely, most certainly have a place in treating the patient. What I'm saying is that they cannot be the foundation of medical care. The foundation of medical care must be lifestyle medicine if this is going to work at all. The current system is prohibitively expensive, $330 billion and climbing for meds alone. It is relatively ineffective when it comes specifically to treating chronic diseases. We know from, for example, the Diabetes Prevention Project that lifestyle is twice as effective as metformin in that particular study for decreasing the likelihood of progressing from prediabetes or fasting insulin resistance to diabetes. The next stage up would be physiology, and that would include things like physical therapy, massage therapy, lymphedema therapy. I was pleased to see that Thrive Therapeutics spoke with you guys back in April and also recommended very much, I looked at their slides, very much a lifestyle centered approach. Prescriptions and surgeries, because of the expense, need to be at the very top of that pyramid. That is what healthcare, true healthcare, not sick care, should look like in the United States. This is probably the best definition of lifestyle medicine as any that I've seen. Lifestyle medicine is the evidence-based practice of helping individuals and families adopt and sustain natural, healthy behaviors that affect health and quality of life. Evidence-based, that is critical. It has to be evidence-based. There's a lot of ideas out there that you'll find online now about, you know, this might be something that you want to consider for treatment of your cancer in this case, or your cardiovascular disease in my career. And not everything that you hear is truth. So this has to be evidence-based. We're looking for things that have been shown in randomized controlled trials or other epidemiologic studies that have been proven in peer-reviewed medical journals as best care. And healthy behaviors, I highlighted that because it's not about what you know. It is about what you do. You can know everything, but if you're not translating any of that knowledge into actual behavior, nothing happens. So it's all about what you do. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. These are the 6 pillars that lifestyle medicine focuses on. That includes healthful eating. I'd say that's a cornerstone habit. Predominantly whole plant-based foods. We're going to talk a lot about that. Increasing physical activity, managing stress, avoiding risky substances, specifically, I'm mostly focusing there on tobacco, but also risky alcohol use. And you could throw in there certain environmental toxins, certainly opioids. Improving sleep, because if you don't sleep well, you don't have the energy to devote to these other foundational pillars. And then forming and maintaining relationships, which I think that's the experience of life. I was the medical director for 4 years of the Ornish Lifestyle Medicine program at Mission Hospital. I'm sad to report that HCA made the decision to terminate that program in December because it was not as lucrative as they hoped that it would be. It was not losing money, but it was not a money maker. So they terminated the program, but I will tell you that that program really made a major impact on how I look at health. That was an intensive cardiovascular rehab program that focused on 4 pillars. Diet, again, whole plant-based foods predominantly. Exercise, stress management, which was mostly hatha yoga and meditation. And the final piece was something called group support. The first 3 pillars, the first 3 pieces there, as the medical director, I was invited to participate in. The 4th part, the group support part, I was not invited to. What happened in group, what was said and discussed in group, stayed in group. That would be the whole cohort of patients. Usually we had about 12 people in that group. They would meet with a licensed counselor, either a clinical psychologist or a licensed clinical social worker, and they would talk about the trauma of this diagnosis, of this cardiovascular diagnosis. And there was some really authentic, vulnerable stuff that came out in group and was shared. And again, I'm not privy to the details, but what really made an impact on me was that we did post course survey for everyone who came through the Ornish program. And invariably, everyone said that the group support piece was the glue that held the whole program together. Knowing that I could share and trust these other people in my cohort allowed me to focus on the healthful eating, the physical activity, and the stress management. So it just gave me a real understanding and appreciation for that relationship piece, which as a scientist, I would say, I sort of discounted because I didn't know how to measure it. I knew the studies on healthful eating. We can do studies on physical activity. We can even do studies on stress management. It's hard to do studies on relationships, but critically important. So I show this slide because I want to make it a point that our cancer colleagues, our oncology colleagues, they're saying exactly the same things. This is from the World Cancer Research Fund and the American Institute for Cancer Research. And you can see if you start down here at the bottom left here, about 7 o'clock, be a healthy weight, be physically active, eat a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, fruits, and beans, limit consumption of fast foods and other processed foods high in fat, starches, and sugars, limit consumption of red or processed meat, get away from sugar sweetened beverages, limit alcohol consumption, don't use supplements for cancer prevention, breastfeed if you can, and after a diagnosis, follow our, I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to try to move this out of the way for you. Follow our recommendations if you can. So very much a lifestyle medicine approach to cancer prevention. Let's talk about nutrition first, because as I said earlier, I think it's a cornerstone habit. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. That is probably a quote that many of you have heard before. It has widely been attributed to Hippocrates, who is the father of modern medicine in ancient Greece. We actually cannot find that he ever said that. We recovered about 60 works from Hippocrates, which is amazing that they're still legible or interpretable. And he didn't say that, but I think he would have agreed with the thought. This is actually a patient of mine who was post-op day 1 from his coronary artery bypass grafting surgery. And when I went in to see him, he said, "Doc, look at my breakfast," because he knew that I was a big proponent of plant-based nutrition for prevention, for treatment, and for reversal of chronic disease. And he had scrambled eggs, skillet fried potatoes, and sort of some orange grease, orange oil, and turkey sausage, which he told me was healthy sausage because it was from a turkey, and of course milk. And what I really thought was the only 2 things that he should necessarily be eating were the fiber supplement here, which he needed for, as if you've had surgery with your cancer diagnosis, you know why that's so important, and cantaloupe. So he said, "I think we're working on repeat business," and I agreed with him and actually removed his tray. So this is what the American diet, the standard American diet, abbreviated SAD or SAD, this is what it looks like. This is straight out of the United States Department of Agriculture fact book. About half of our calories come from refined and processed foods, about 42% from dairy and animal foods, and only about 7% from fruits and vegetables. And that is, you don't have to be a nutritionist or a dietitian to recognize that is that's not where we need to be. So I'm gonna put some people up there where I can see you for just a sec. Fiber. How much fiber do you think are in animal products? Burgers, pork, chicken?
Zero.
I see a lot of zeros. Excellent. Cholesterol. How much cholesterol is in animal products?
Do you mean by percentage of weight or?
A lot. How much cholesterol, as a cardiologist and lipidologist, how much cholesterol is in plants?
It depends.
0.
Oh, plants. Oh, saturated fat is coconut, but 0 cholesterol. Okay.
That's right. That's exactly right. So no cholesterol. Most of the saturated fat that we see you're right, is from animal products. The 2 exceptions in the plant world would be coconut and palm oil. So coconuts I would avoid if you have cardiovascular disease or any vascular disease. Same with palm oil, but palm oil is mostly in processed foods anyway. That's where it's used as a preservative. So only 7% from fruits and veggies. I'm going to minimize you again because I don't know if you see yourselves when I don't minimize you. So this is what it said in the American Institute for Cancer Research dietary recommendation. Make whole grains, vegetables, fruit, and legumes, such as beans and lentils, a major part of your usual daily diet. All of the fiber in your diet is coming from plant-based sources. Don't worry about protein. People don't understand that. For another, I'll put you again where I can see you. Is there protein in celery?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there protein in carrots?
Yes.
Yes.
Which has the most protein per calorie, steak or broccoli?
Broccoli.
Broccoli.
Broccoli. Protein per calorie. Most of the calories in the steak are coming from saturated fat, not from protein. About a third of the calories in broccoli are actually from protein. You are always going to get, if you are eating a whole food plant-based diet with a diverse whole food plant-based diet, not a junk food vegan diet. I'm talking fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, food that your great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother would recognize as food. If you are eating a diverse plant-based diet, you need not worry about protein. Protein is a growth accelerant. We get plenty of protein. Most people in the United States are getting too much protein. If you have or recovering from or concerned about a diagnosis of cancer or a risk of cancer, you do not want to eat too much protein. You do not want those cancer cells replicating. So don't worry about getting enough protein with a plant-based diet. You are. The question really should be people who are eating a plant-based diet asking carnivores, where are you getting your fiber? That's where we should be focusing, not focusing.
Dr. Asbell,
Yes,
may
ma'am.
I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I
That's
thought there
great.
was.
We got plenty of time.
Okay, as whoever is on this call, whoever are cancer survivors, probably a lot of us have had the experience where they're telling us after chemotherapy and radiation to eat high protein because you have to build the new cells, the new healthy cells. And so that made some sense to me, but I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
I think that I've heard that before. I've also heard one of my patients who, unbelievable, he had terrible diffuse cardiovascular disease. He went on a plant-based diet. They took him off of the transplant list for his heart transplant because he was too well. The transplant director at Duke said, I've never seen this before. What's going on? And he shared with him that he had gone plant-based. He then had some electrical problems with his heart, and they were considering that he should have a cardiac transplant because of his electrical problems. There was not a good solution for his electrical problems. So he went back on the list, and in meeting with the nutritionist, the dietitian at Duke, and I'm not throwing Duke under the bus, I'm just sharing a true experience. She said the same thing. You need to eat more protein. You need to eat more animal products. He laughed. He said, do you understand that the reason that they delisted me is that I changed my diet and I went plant-based, and now I'm looking at a heart transplant and you're telling me the same thing that you're saying, Susan, that you need to eat more animal products, more protein. I respectfully disagree. I think that, and respectfully, truly, I think that the dietitians are in the same boat that the doctors are in, where we're just not taught this way. We're not spending enough time focusing on the truth around nutrition. I'm not saying that you can never eat animal products. I'm saying that it's a spectrum, and the best health outcomes are at the plant-based end. The worst health outcomes are at the meat lovers, stuffed crust, cheese, pan pizza end, especially if it's buy one, get one free. And you choose where you want to be on that spectrum. I think that we sometimes overthink it. So I know that they're concerned about you building new cells. I know they're concerned about you maintaining your weight. So maintain your weight. Be active as you recover. Be active and weigh yourself and pay attention. If your weight is declining and you feel like your energy is flagging, you're not getting enough calories. It's not that you're not getting enough protein, you're not getting enough calories. So you need to figure out how to get more calories.
Well, they knew luckily I'm one of the lucky ones. I did not have nausea and vomit and weight loss during chemo. Right. I was so happy.
Yeah.
But I eat a whole food plant-based diet. So every time I go in, they ask, well, how, do you have constipation, diarrhea? And my answer is, instead of saying no, I say, oh, I eat a whole food plant-based diet. Like, I don't say no. And then I say, therefore, no, and usually they're cocking their heads like, why is she answering like that? I'm
Right.
trying to spread the
Right.
word, but
Well,
so,
I hear you.
but so they even said protein, even if it was vegan or plant-based, to, to up, because the new cells.
Yeah, I don't specifically know the answer to that. I think that certainly every study that I've looked at that is not specifically cancer studies, but there are some cancer people involved in the studies and mostly focusing on the cardiovascular issues. Plant protein is better than animal protein. I don't really, as a rule, recommend post-op cabbage or even post-op from cancer surgeries that you increase protein as long as you are, again, maintaining your weight and feel like your energy level is fine. That's enough. We've sort of gotten away from just knowing thyself. How do I feel? How's my energy level? Pay attention to those things. And if you're losing weight, you can if you need to, you can add plant-based protein in there. But I think more than that, you need to add fat, hemp hearts, avocados, more calories. And nausea is a problem. And if you have mouth sores if you're having head and neck radiation or something, chemotherapy and mouth sores, maybe you need to drink them, put it all in a blender, blend it up and just sip it all day if it's just too painful to eat it. But good questions. So this is a chromosome. Minimize you again. That is a chromosome. And the green ends are telomeres. Dr. Ornish, in his program that I told you about a minute ago, the intensive cardiovascular rehab program, he also shared that program with cancer patients. What he found is that telomere length, the end of the chromosomes, the telomeres are sort of like the plastic tips on a shoelace. They keep the DNA in the chromosome, it's all wound up and packaged in that chromosome from exploding. And as the cell divides, the telomere, the cap will shorten. And after a while, if it's shortened, if it's divided enough times and there's no more telomere to divide, that cell will die. And that's called apoptosis or programmed cell death. And what Ornish showed in his research is that he could actually increase telomere length, which is associated with increased longevity. It's also, I think, very interesting to look at what his research showed in patients, men with early stage prostate cancer that elected not to have treatment. They were not going to have surgery. They were not going to have radiation or chemotherapy. No treatment. The patients that went through his program had genetic testing, and then they looked at their genome again 3 months later. On the left here is pre-intervention. The red squares are oncogenes. So those are genes that will promote cancer replication. The green boxes here are tumor suppressor genes, which suppress cancer cell proliferation. And after 3 months, what they did was they repeated the genetic testing, and you can see fewer red boxes. So the oncogenes were downregulated. They were turned off. The green boxes were significantly upregulated. So the tumor suppressor genes were activated. Over 500 genes were changed based on that program, again, based on a whole food, plant-based diet. PSA levels, prostate-specific antigen, which is the blood test that men get to tell whether or not they're dealing with any prostate issues, sometimes elevated not just with cancer, but with things like benign prostatic hyperplasia. One of the very few things that men actually have to suffer from relative to women, I think. And it worked. It's what you eat makes a big difference. Food is absolutely medicine. Genetic modification is the concept of something we call epigenetics. And I don't want to get too in the weeds here and too scientific, but I do want you to know something about the term epigenetics. The classic example of epigenetics is the agouti mouse. The agouti mouse is this overweight, obese, in fact, by mouse standards, obese yellow mouse here, actually here, because this is mama mouse. And Just like in humans, obese mice are more likely to develop diabetes and certain cancers. There are about 13 cancers, I think, now that we've identified are increased in patients with obesity. What is fascinating is that if you feed the agouti mouse, the mom, the obese yellow mouse, so her agouti gene has been expressed. If you feed her plain rat chow, then her child, her mouse, her baby mouse, will have the agouti gene expressed and will look just like mom. If, however, you supplement her diet of mouse chow with choline, folate, folic acid, betaine, and vitamin B12, then the agouti gene undergoes a process called methylation, where there's a little protein called a methyl group that is stuck to the gene, turns it off so that agouti gene is not expressed. The baby mouse then is a normal weight brown mouse, no increased risk of diabetes, no increased risk of cancer. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating that what the mom eats determines the baby's, not only the phenotype, what the baby looks like, but the diseases that the baby might be susceptible to over the course of that normal mouse life. There are some studies that suggest that same process happens in humans, but there are no randomized trials that show that. But this is the age now coming of really tremendous advancements in epigenetics and in the study of the microbiome, the gut bacteria, and the incredible effect that the billions of bacteria in your intestinal system have on your health. So I want you to be familiar with the term epigenetics and microbiome, because you're going to hear a whole lot about that in the next 10 or 20 years. I put this in here because people always want to know what should I be eating and what shouldn't I be eating? And so I kind of made a top 10 list and a bottom 10 list. And on the top 10 list here on the left, you'll see, you can read as well as I want to make a special mention of what we're talking about when I say crucifers. Crucifers are cruciferous vegetables. So that includes, that family would include broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, arugula. Those are the ones that come to mind. There are probably a few more that I missed, but they are potent sources of something called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is a very potent anti-cancer compound. So I am a huge fan of making sure that we're getting cruciferous vegetables. Everything in this top 10 list contains fiber, which decreases the risk of colorectal cancer. Everything on this list contains phytochemicals, phytonutrients, and cancer-fighting chemicals that are found predominantly in plants. They are found a little bit in animals because they've eaten the plants. But skip the animal, go straight to the source, eat the plants. The bottom 10 here, you'll see, I put chicken in here, sort of controversial, because chicken is, it is the second most common, and this is best and worst foods for everyone. Chicken is the second most common source in the American diet of cholesterol. Eggs are number one, chicken's number two. Also a very significant source of saturated fat in the diet. The biggest take-home message from the bottom 10 is sugar, saturated fat, and processing. Sugar is not good for you no matter what. It's okay to have some of it. We can hardly escape it these days. Don't add it. If you're drinking it in your coffee in the morning, migrate away from it. Don't add sugar. It's already in everything that you're eating. Be careful. If everything I've talked about with epigenetics and oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes is too complicated, the main message here is, I think, very eloquently expressed by Michael Pollan, who's not a doctor, he was a writer. He is a writer. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Okay, so eat food, eat real food, eat food that your great-great-grandparents would recognize as food, eat food that is a plant. Don't eat food that was made in a plant. Not too much is probably redundant, frankly, if you're getting most of your calories from plant-based sources, because again, we're I like to think of food as sort of, I like to eat anyway, and I don't always think about it this way, but I do like to think of food as a nutrient to calorie density. You want the most nutrition you can get and the fewest calories that you can get, but you want it to taste good and you want it to fill you up. The nutrient to calorie density is the where it should be as God intended, with apples, beans, berries, nuts, seeds, etc., not with cheeseburgers and French fries. And mostly plants means majority of your calories need to come from plant-based sources. I think that point has been clear. Any questions? We'll have some time at the end, but any questions about nutrition? Any other questions right now? I'm going to move on to exercise. So exercise, doesn't matter how much you do, doesn't matter what type you do, how much is enough. You know, it again, going back to the American Institute of Cancer Research guidelines right here, be physically active. But what does that mean? I mean, be physically active is okay. I mean, that's pretty subjective, right? I tell every one of my patients that if I had something that I could recommend to you that you could do that would reduce your risk of all-cause mortality, it would reduce your risk of death no matter what the cause, cardiovascular disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, you name it, you are 20% less likely to die if you do it. Would you do it? I have not had anyone, I've had a couple of people look at me like, what comes next? And I'll tell you, but everybody says yes to that. And that is exercise. And that is 2.5 hours of exercise a week, 150 minutes of exercise a week. That is the United States Preventive Services Task Force guideline recommended amount of exercise for everyone. If you are sedentary and you move to 2.5 hours a week, usually broken up as 30 minutes, 5 days a week, that is associated with a 20% reduction in S's hazard ratio of mortality, 20% reduction of mortality. This is leisure time physical activity. This is not Olympic training. You can overtrain if you're an Olympic athlete. It comes to mind during this Olympics. But for leisure time physical activity, there is no amount of leisure time physical activity that is not associated with a decline in mortality. The steepest part of the curve occurs from sedentary to 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. If you double it to 5 hours, you get a little bit more. You double it again to 10 hours, you get a little bit more, double, more. But the key is here, and that's why we've set it at 2.5 hours per week. Now, there are 7 cancers that are associated with being sedentary. There are 3 types of cancer that have been shown to, or excuse me, let me go back. There are 7 types of cancer that you're more likely to develop if you're sedentary. There are 3 types of cancer that have been shown to be reduced, the risk of death is reduced with exercise. And those 3 cancers are listed here: breast, colorectal, and prostate cancer. For each one of these cancers, there is a 38% relative risk reduction of death if you're exercising 2.5 hours a week. I put this in here. I know it's too small. I want you to just have it. I'll make sure that you get it. I want you to have this as a reference. 2 points I wanted to make here. Number one, exercise is not all about mortality. It's about quality of life. Yes, we want to add years to life. We also want to add life to years. And as I'm 53 years old, and as I've gotten older, I've certainly starting to focus more on the quality instead of the quantity. Cancer-related fatigue is decreased with exercise. Physical function is obviously improved. Studies have shown a clear and persistent decline in anxiety and depression and in lymphedema. This is aerobic only. These are the compilation of the studies, or how many times a week and how often you need to do it. This is resistance training. So this can be body weight. This is muscle work. This can be body weight. It can be weights. It doesn't matter. And this is the combination. So if you're not an exerciser and you know that you need to get busy here, this is your exercise prescription here. It's too small to read it, but you can zoom it up when I get it to you if you don't already have it at home. The intensity of exercise is another thing that comes up. Is a good question. It comes up a lot. Low levels, always make it simple. Low level exercise is I can talk and I can sing. It's like, it reminds me of The Sound of Music and Julie Andrews, singing out there on the Alps. And she's singing, she's exercising, but she can still sing. Low level activity. Moderate physical activity is I could talk, but I couldn't sing. So think about walking up a hill a little bit with a friend, walking the dogs together. I'm a little breathless, we can still converse, but I couldn't sing. High level physical activity, intense physical activity, I could neither talk nor sing. I mean, that'd be like, burpees or something where you just, all you're trying to do is breathe. So that's a helpful, that helps me determine kind of where I am. Don't worry about percentage of heart rate and all that stuff. Don't worry about that. Is there another point I wanted to make about that? That's it. So the guidelines do say 150 minutes a week in most cases for moderate physical activity. That number is actually cut in half for high level physical activity, but that's not for everyone. And frankly, walking is probably the best medicine and lowest risk of injury. And you don't want it to be so exhausting and so difficult that you just don't enjoy doing it. The best exercise is the one that you enjoy doing. Stress management, unwind. The problem with stress, everybody's familiar with the fight or flight phenomenon. The problem is that the lion is no longer our stressor. Our stressor now, our stressors now are things like traffic, work deadlines, emails, Netflix, social media, probably my least favorite one. I know there's some benefits to social media, but I would submit that it is done in most cases more harm than good. All of those things are associated with a continuous low level production of cortisol, which are one of our really damaging stress hormones. Increased stress leads to increased cortisol. Increased cortisol does a lot of things that you don't want it to be doing. It increases inflammation, which I really think is the sort of the common denominator of these chronic diseases, whether or not it's cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, dyslipidemia, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, arthritis, etc. Inflammation is good in small doses. It is bad when it is chronically elevated. Decreases thyroid function, clearly causes blood sugar imbalances, decreases muscle mass. We talked about that. Lowers immune function. You certainly don't want that when you're dealing with cancer diagnosis. You want to heal your wounds, and it disrupts your sleep. It increases anxiety and depression. It disrupts all of your healthy lifestyle behaviors. And the point really is that it lowers your quality of life. Stress is bad. The key is what's going to be your stress reliever. This is very personal, I think. Walking, I think exercise, moderate level exercise, is probably one of my favorite stress relievers because you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're getting the exercise piece and you're getting the stress piece. And especially if you're doing it in the morning outside, you're also helping with your sleep. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So I really cannot emphasize enough how important that exercise part. Doesn't have to be walking, it can be whatever you want to do. It could be swimming, but walking is just so easy. And pretty much everybody can do it. Meditation is another one of my favorites. I will share another personal story that as we rolled out the Ornish program in July of 2016, I felt like I really was pretty up to date on the nutrition and the physical activity and the studies showing benefit from a cardiovascular disease standpoint. I sort of dismissed the meditation piece, partly because I knew that I wasn't really probably managing my stress as a busy full-time cardiologist. I wasn't managing it very well, and you kind of don't want to shine light sometimes on something that is a shortcoming. I've had tremendous, I'm happy to talk anytime about this when we have more time, tremendous experience with meditation over the last year in particular since I left my cardiology practice. Really just transformative, absolutely transformative. Yoga is another good one. Music is a good one. These days, Zooming with a friend or relative is a good one. The important thing is that you have to figure out what works for you. And it may require some experimentation to figure out what works. And again, it's it's a very personal thing, and you have to kind of try, you have to kiss a few frogs potentially before you say, okay, this one suits me. This is a reminder to not beat yourself up too much. Even those people who are just really super dealing with stress, long-term meditators, occasionally don't deal very well with stress. So one thing you got to remember is just go easy on yourself. Don't beat yourself up too much when you feel like, oh man, I didn't handle that very well. If a Buddhist monk loses it, we can lose it too. So restful sleep. Sleep is another one that I'm having more appreciation for, the power of sleep. Sleep does a number of things, and I bolded here the ones that I think are really particularly pertinent to cancer patients as we're recovering. We optimize physiologic growth. It reduces inflammation, improves mood, regulates emotion, repletes energy stores. That's why they call it a power nap. And ultimately, what sleep does is it allows all of us to connect physically, mentally, and emotionally. That really it's all about the joy of life, the joy of living. In all ways, sleep honors health and healing. Don't get tied up with this slide. It's confusing. I only put it in there because it is to remind me to make a couple of points. In general, physical repair happens in the first half of your sleep. Mental and emotional repair happens in the second part of your sleep. In the first part of your sleep, DNA is being repaired. When DNA is mutated and not allowed to repair, it can cause cancer. This is when anti-cancer cytokines are being made in the body. This is when inflammation is being dealt with in the body. So physical repair happens in the first part of sleep. In the second part of sleep, you get most of your REM sleep, rapid eye movement. This is when you're dreaming. You do dream a little bit in your first part of your sleep, usually about 90 minutes actually after you fall asleep. But the reason, if you think about it, you'll recognize that this is the case. Think about when you wake up in the morning, and if you think about the dream you just had, you can remember it. If you don't, you won't. But you most of the time, or a lot of the time, people will be waking up in the morning right out of a dream, and that's illustrated here. This is very important for anxiety and depression clearing. This is very important for creativity and problem solving. We know that we don't function well when we aren't getting enough sleep. That the recommended amount of sleep, although there's some debate about this, is at least 7 hours for adults. At least 7 hours a night is really what we want to try and get to. If people are having trouble with sleep and they're having insomnia, the place we want to start is to look at healthy sleep habits. That's always where we want to start. And they are, one, try and maintain a regular sleep schedule. That means don't stay up late for the weekends. Try not to sleep in on the weekends. There's a little bit of catching up you can do if you're working full time. I get it. If you're, a huge college football fan like I am, Clemson fan, and they're playing at night, you're just going to have a late bedtime that night. It's fine. It's the exceptions are fine. But as a rule, you want to go to bed and wake up at roughly the same time, at least within an hour every day of the week. Relaxing bedtime routine. It can be anything you want it to be. It's another time where you can do double duty here, okay? Meditation, yoga, hot bath, read a book, something that is your signal that it is time to wind down. Something that tells you to close the computer, get off of email, turn the TV off. You don't need all that blue light stimulation. Bedtime routine, time to wind down. Avoid caffeine and nicotine, enough said there. You want the room to be cool. You want it to be ideally in the 60s. We're all a little bit different there too. And since you're going to spend a third of your life on your mattress, get a good mattress. It's amazing that people can spend $1,100 on an iPhone 12 but can't throw out a mattress that's 20 years old because it'll be $500. Block out noise and light. You want it to be dark. You want it to be quiet. The bed is for sleep and sex. I tell patients all the time, sleep and intimacy. It is not a place to eat. It is not your kitchen table. It is not a place to watch TV. It is not a place to be doing computer work. Exercise in daylight, I spoke to earlier. It is best for your brain for melatonin production. If you will exercise, preferably outside, preferably in the morning, both for energy expenditure and for light exposure. So another kind of double dipping there, and avoiding food that's going to cause reflux at night. Excuse me. If you're doing all these things right and you're still having trouble sleeping, which really disrupts your ability to stick with those other pillars, then you might benefit from something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. There are a couple of programs in Western North Carolina that I'm happy to direct you to if that's something that you're interested in pursuing. That's about an 8-week course, and it reframes how you are dealing with sleep. Not many people need that, but about maybe 5% of my patients that are dealing with sleep issues benefit from CBT. And finally, social support, because I said earlier, it's really all about building, maintaining relationships. Some wise person told me that, at the end of your life, the only thing that's going to matter to you is who you loved and who loved you. And I just think that is just one of those simple wisdoms. That's like Laura saying, you ought to be able to see the ribs on your dog and the ribs on your kids. Just common sense wisdom. And that's true. I mean, when you think about it, my dad developed lung cancer and was, unfortunately, when he was diagnosed, it was widespread, and it wasn't a situation where he was going to be cured. And he chose not to have chemotherapy, and we involved hospice care. And that last 24 days that we were able to spend together was just, it was magical. So make sure that you have a community of support. It's very difficult to walk this journey alone, particularly a cancer journey. Camp Bluebird, Thrive Therapeutics, who presented in April, Ruckus Health, which I'll tell you a little bit about here at the end. Robin Tiger is a friend of mine. She's a radiologist. She's going to be speaking to you, I think, next month. She is a master of meditation and yoga, an excellent resource, and of course, friends and family. So Ruckus Health. So I left my cardiology practice a year ago on July 31st, and wasn't really sure what was going to come next. But I hooked up with a friend of mine who's a neurosurgeon in Charlotte, who felt the same way I did, that he was operating on people who didn't need to be operated on, who would have benefited more from a lifestyle medicine program, nutrition for weight loss, better sleep, physical therapy, and they could have reversed their problem and not had to have back surgery, which, as many of you know, is notoriously unreliable, I think. I felt the same way about what I was seeing in cardiology. And I said, Mike, let's do something together. So we founded a new company called Ruckus Health, Ruckus to creating a ruckus in the healthcare space. And our vision, it really is to support people holistically in uncovering their innate ability to live in emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual balance. And our mission is to mindfully and purposefully disrupt the healthcare system. We don't know exactly how we're going to do it yet, and I'm happy to answer questions about that. I could talk about this for a long time, but I just felt compelled, we both felt compelled to really help transition our broken sick care system, I'll call it, to a healthcare system. We have 2 other partners in that venture, one of whom is Mike's sister in New Hampshire, and another, Fred Byers, who's in Charlotte. We have hired dietitians. We've hired an exercise physiologist. We have partnerships with professional counselors to develop programs. If you go to our website now, you'll see another piece at the top that has programs, and I encourage you to check that out if there's something that we can help you with. Right now, what we're doing is virtual offerings. I'm seeing patients to give them lifestyle medicine counseling and dealing with chronic disease. Our vision for phase 2 is really going to be able to build a center, a brick and mortar center for lifestyle medicine. I envision people coming into the center for medical care to see their doctor, who ideally may have a direct primary care relationship where you have time to spend with the doctor and really get to know your doctor. That doctor will be available to you, will be able to spend time with you, will be more available to you, and that it will be team-based care. And that will be a place where you can not only see the doctor, but practice these lifestyle behaviors, where you can do your movement class or your meditation or yoga class or see your massage therapist where you can eat at the plant-based cafe, where you can seek a counselor to talk about your insomnia, where you can do a teaching kitchen course on plant-based nutrition. So really kind of one-stop shopping for that base of that pyramid that we talked about. These are the cancer resources that I wanted you to have. These were actually, Robin Tiger gave these to me. She was on a call with an oncologist from MD Anderson. And that lifestyle-focused oncologist said, you really need to be aware of these resources. This last one, I think, is particularly good. Anticancerlifestyle.org. It's nonprofit. They have a lifestyle medicine program that is free. It is very well done. It talks about all the pillars that I presented to you today. I would encourage you to check that out, anticancerlifestyle.org. This is our email address. If you want to contact me, I'm happy to talk to you about how maybe we can help you. This is our website address. There's no m.com was taken in 2014. So we did not, it's being held for ransom, and we did not buy that. So thank you, guys. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen so that I can see you. There's everyone. It's weird giving a talk and not being able to see anyone. That's so weird. So yeah, I
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
Hopefully some of that is helpful. I mean, I can't stress enough how much control you have over this.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you too, but I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I had breast cancer and I hadn't had any problem with lymphedema. This goes to your exercise.
Mhm, mhm.
And I went to the Live Strong program at the Y and started doing the chest compressions. Then I developed lymphedema.
Mm.
So I'm assuming the lymphedema exercise is to help reduce it for people that's already got it.
It is. I think what's going on there is you're not being able, because of the more muscular contraction, you're not
Uh-huh.
able to generate enough. You're generating more lymph and not being able to remove it as quickly as you were when you were sedentary. I think, with time that will improve most of the time when you give up certain, you have to figure out which exercises make it worse and which don't. But on lymphedema therapy, did you do lymphedema therapy at the beginning?
No, I didn't have it when I had my surgery and
You
everything.
didn't have any.
I didn't have any chemo. I just had radiation.
Okay.
And I didn't have any lymphedema till I went for the Live Strong program and was doing the exercise. And then I developed some lymphedema.
Did it go away, or do you still have it?
I still have it.
I think lymphedema therapy really it works. I think they do that. Thrive Therapeutics does a good job with lymphedema therapy.
Yeah. It's not near as severe as some people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I can tell the difference in my arms, which
Yeah.
one is
It's
swelled
kind of
up.
convenience. It's heavy. If it bothers you enough, I think lymphedema therapy should be something that you should try. It will help.
Yeah.
Um,
Wanda, I go still, and there's a lot of options, but there's some great folks at Care Partners.
Uh-huh.
And they specialize in lymphedema therapy, and there's also some new approaches to it. There's some old-fashioned techniques and there's some new-fashioned techniques that they also know about. It's a really good thing. And there's also a pump you can get. And
Yeah, when I went to Camp Bluebird, there was one of the lymphedema therapists came there voluntarily doing her, and she diagnosed me and she said, yes, I do have some lymphedema going on in that arm. So.
And the thing that has helped me like miraculously is compression.
Uh-huh.
And it took a couple of years for things to stabilize where I don't need it every day. But I mean, compression is miraculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like your case is minor enough that it might, you might be able to get rid of it completely.
Yeah.
But you want to nip it in the bud, I would say. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wanda, do you have Emily Jones's information that probably diagnosed you at Camp Bluebird?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
it was Emily. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can. I'm sure she'd be happy if you just reached out to her.
Yeah.
She
Uh-huh.
presented at our last lift.
Yeah.
Sally, this is Oral Wells. Do
Mhm.
y'all archive these where we can refer people to it at your website?
Absolutely. We're going to have them on our Facebook page. So we have a Camp Bluebird of Western North Carolina Facebook page. It is private, but anybody can join it. You just send a request. And Angela is recording this, and she posts them on there.
Angela does everything.
She does do everything.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Brian, this was
Dr. Asbill, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, does Ruckus Health accept insurance, or might it soon? If it does.
It does currently not. Might it? Yes. Probably realistically, we're probably looking at 6 months to a year. It's a long process.
Okay.
Yes, that's our goal, but not yet.
Okay. And the only other question I had is when you presented one of the slides from whichever cancer institutes had their pillars listed, and you were showing how everything dovetailed. One thing that I was wondering about is because it said, do not take supplements.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Supplements can mean lots of different things, but like I supplement with turmeric, but it's in a shaker bottle,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Or I supplement with mushrooms, and it's in
Yeah.
powder form. So I mean, you know, cancer fighting mushrooms, cancer fighting herbs and spices, and what you could call supplements. So what are your thoughts on that?
So that's a great question. I smile because I get the same Four Sigmatic. I don't get the adaptogen. Is it the adaptogen mix? It's 30 servings. Maybe it is the.
Here you go. Here's the other one.
Yeah, that's the one I get. That one, mushroom blend. Yes, Defend. That's exactly. I put it in my coffee every single morning. I have done it for a year and a half. The point there is that you need to be. Don't rely on supplements as the cure. It's everything that you're extracting from the supplements is in whole foods. In the whole food form, it's packaged with the other things that you need, like the fiber, like the water, like the other phytonutrients that you aren't in the supplements. It's not that supplements are bad. They're not to be used as replacements for the whole food items.
Right. I mean, the word in and itself, the word is supplement, but
Yes.
people are not using it in that way. Yeah.
Correct. It
Sometimes.
is not a cure. It is a supplement. Turmeric, if you're cooking, you're adding it to all your curry and all that sort of thing. So good anti-inflammatory drug, as you know. I'm a big fan of adaptogenic mushrooms.
Yeah.
So, can you get them from mushrooms? Yes. Is it easier to just add it to your coffee when your family doesn't like mushrooms like mine? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Both.
sneaking them in there. I'm sneaking them in there more and more. Before my 16-year-old leaves my home, he will love mushrooms. Aura, did you have a question?
No, I just appreciate you taking time to do this.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. It's so frustrating for me to watch the news about a month ago, we had a new Alzheimer's drug that doesn't work and costs $50,000 a year. And now they have another Parkinson's drug that'll stop the motion. And lifestyle would do so much more than any of these drugs, and that you just can't get any traction with lifestyle, but people will beat the door down to take a pill.
Yeah, I know. It's really disturbing. I gave a talk for lifestyle medicine and brain health for Care Partners, which is available to you. It's on their website, I think. I'm not sure. But there was a lady, Lynn Ivy. She's in Charlotte, and she runs a dementia program called the Ivy, IVEY. And she asked me to come to Charlotte. She's kicking off a lifestyle medicine for brain health program. It's an 8-week program. And I said, absolutely. So she's going to kick that off in September. So, it's starting, people are starting to understand. It's just, the ACLM, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, the membership is just exploding. It's now, I think it's happening now. I think it's, I'm hopeful that the next 10 years will be the time that we're going to get finally to the tipping point.
Well, I happen to have met the first ever doctor that signed up for lifestyle medicine.
Right, you did.
Number one.
Yeah, not number one in many things, but I am number one in that. I've got it somewhere around here. Certificate number one.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Awesome.
It's exciting. I miss my patients, by the way. I miss my cardiology patients. I miss my colleagues, but I don't miss that model of care. I really, it's energetically from a provider standpoint. You know, we hear a lot about physician burnout, and I really believe this because it's worse now than ever, by the way, with the COVID pandemic and all the extra work put on us with that situation. But I think it's because of learned helplessness. I think that providers recognize that they don't have enough time with patients, that they're not making the impact they want to make, that doubling your statin dose and lowering your LDL cholesterol by 6% isn't the answer to the problem, that metformin isn't as good as lifestyle medicine. We know, but we don't have the time or the training. We're stuck in this paradigm of care because this is how we're trained to take care of patients in Western medicine. And it's a very draining energy pattern, honestly. I'm not saying that you don't have great doctors, because I'm sure you all do, but it's hard. And I'll tell you that for me anyway, you can't unsee what you've seen. I mean, I've told you this story, I think, but my epiphany as a cardiologist was I had a patient who came to see me recommended that he have a third open heart surgery, third coronary artery bypass surgery, because he was having chest pain walking the dog, taking nitroglycerin every day. And I had a book called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Esselstyn, which is all about plant-based nutrition. And I gave it to him. I said, come see me in 3 months. And so he did. Came back 3 months later, he'd lost 27 pounds. His cholesterol was down 100 points. And he said, within a week of changing my diet, I've not used another nitroglycerin since, not a single one. I was using 5 a day. And within a week, I have not used a single nitroglycerin. He still sends me Christmas cards. It's been 8 years. He's had a stent to one of his bypasses. He never had a third bypass surgery, which would have been incredibly expensive and frankly wouldn't have been as effective as changing his diet. And that's when I said, I got to learn more about this. And I'll tell you that my experience with lifestyle medicine programming, including CHIP, including Ornish, was that patients said to me, number one, this is the best I've ever felt. And the question then was, why has my doctor never told me this? And it's not our fault. I'm not blaming doctors at all. I'm just making the point that it is a completely different energy from a provider standpoint to really see people heal with lifestyle medicine instead of people being sort of hopefully staying stable with the pills and procedures approach. They don't feel good. They're having side effects of their medicines. It's expensive. They don't know how they're going to afford it. It's a totally different energy. And as a provider, it's as beneficial to the providers as it is to the patients. So I really think that's key. I mean, that's that quadruple aim that people keep talking about in the hospital systems. Lower or better result for patients, less expensive care, and a better experience for patients and a better experience for providers, the quadruple aim. So it works. It works. It takes more time, and that's the problem in the system we have today. Well, you guys have been fun. Yes.
Thank you so much. Oh, you're on mute, Betsy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
I've been reading a whole lot about intermittent fasting, and I just wondered what your viewpoint is on if it's beneficial, just anything about it.
Mm-hmm. I kind of break it down into 3 sort of tiers. There's time restricted eating, which is the shortest fasts. So not eating anything for at least 12 hours a day. Some people go 16 hours a day or 18 hours a day where you're skipping 1 meal a day and eating 2 meals a day. So don't eat after 7 p.m. Don't eat again until 11, 12 the next day. That's the shortest. The next level up from that would be intermittent fasting, which is most commonly done as a 3-2 or 3-1-2-1. So eat for 3 days, fast for a day, eat for 2 days, fast for a day. And then the longest would be prolonged fasting. And historically, that's been things like water fasting, which is very difficult. There's a center in California called True North that does water fasting. There is if you're interested in a prolonged fast, there is a company called Prolon, 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 started by Dr. Longo, Longo. Dr. Longo, I'll get his book. Dr. Longo wrote this book, The Longevity Diet. It's an interesting read. It's scientific, but it's you get it. It's worth a look, honestly, if you're interested in this at all. He's the director of the University of Southern California Center for Longevity, and it's interesting. All three of those levels will help people to lose weight. I think that it doesn't. The only reason that it works is that you're eating fewer calories. There's nothing magical about the weight loss part. It's fewer calories. It makes you a more mindful eater. I'm not just think about all the times that you snack during the day, that if you just said, I'm not going to eat for 16 hours, you're not snacking, you're not getting the calories. It is interesting when you look at the prolonged fasting. He has developed a 5-day fasting mimicking diet where you actually are eating some calories. I've done it several times. It's hard because I thought it was hard. I was not interested in weight loss, although I did lose a few pounds. I was more interested in the longevity data. I'm very interested in the science around turning on and off certain genes, going back to the epigenetics, turning off the genes of aging. There's a couple of specific genes of aging called TOR and RAS, which are clearly downregulated when you do a 5-day prolonged fast for months. And if you look at prolonged fasting, it clearly has increased longevity in multiple species. From the initial work was done on yeast and then worms, and it's been done on monkeys. And the preliminary data on humans is that humans that aren't eating so many calories or fasting regularly are living longer. Is it really that you're living longer? Or does it just seem that way? We'll see. But it's interesting to do that. It's about $150 for the Prolon 5-day fast. It's not great food. It's hard. You're hungry the whole time. But it's it's like it's an interesting experiment. So maybe it makes you live longer. It'll make you lose a little more weight, but it's because of calorie restriction.
Is there anything about cell regeneration in here at all?
That definitely is part of the longevity thing. You are letting the cells that need to die, the senescent, the old cells die, and you're replacing them with new cells and increasing stem cells, which are pluripotent, can be anything cells. So it's rejuvenation. Juven is the word for like gerontology is study of older people. Juventology is the study of younger people. So it's rejuvenating your cells. That's interesting that he actually in this book talks specifically about cancer, that if you do prolonged fasting, and I can't remember the actual sequence, but prolonged fasting before chemotherapy, it makes the chemotherapy more potent in targeting the cells that are the cancer cells, which need a lot of sugar and protein and carbohydrates and everything to grow. You are targeting specifically the cancer cells when you fast, and then you follow that up with chemo. It makes the chemo more successful, and the cancer cells die, the good cells don't. And there's some information in this longevity diet book about that. It's worth a look.
Well, the other thing is I'm estrogen positive in terms of my breast cancer. Yep. And so I'm on the lovely estrogen blocker that makes me feel horrible. But I started the intermittent fasting, not rigorously, but just really limiting, my food intake. And, I'll go for, I'd say 18 hours. And the pain has gone away from all that anti-estrogen medicine. So I told my oncologist, because I was about ready to tell her I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, out of desperation, I tried this, and it's really, really helped. So she is very interested in that and said, just keep doing it.
Yeah. That's interesting. I did not know that about the tamoxifen interaction. I was just looking in the longevity diet about cancer specifically. Starved cancer cells are most vulnerable to the assault of chemotherapy after fasting. Potentially effective strategy for improving conventional treatment options while reducing side effects. Synergy boost in efficacy, at least in mice. Protects against a wide range of chemotherapy drug side effects, which speaks to what you're saying.
Mhm.
Efficacy of fasting or fasting mimicking diet in increasing the effect of standard therapy on breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, neuroblastoma, glioma, lung cancer, mesothelioma, melanoma. Safe and potentially effective in protecting patients from multiple side effects. 3 days before, if the oncologist agrees, the patient may fast or adopt a fasting mimicking diet 3 days before and 1 day after receiving chemotherapy or other standard of care drugs. It's really very interesting. I mean, you don't have nothing to lose. Why
Yeah,
not try to make it more effective? It doesn't cost much to not eat. We
Yeah.
recommend between fasting cycles that cancer patients maintain a low sugar, mostly plant-based, low protein, Susan, low protein, but otherwise high nourishment diet, which allow them to maintain a healthy weight and normal BMI, body mass index.
well, I know I'm a vegan, and then I started this, and now I can tolerate the anastrozole that I'm on because it's been brutal. And so for me to be able to stay on it, it's worth it to me.
Good for you. As long as you got your strength and you're maintaining your weight. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I did, by the way, meet with Messino Cancer Center oncologists because they asked me to talk to them about some of this same stuff. And what I was really most interested in finding out from them, how can Ruckus Health support the oncologist? I believe in community supporting community
Mhm.
and building up that network, as I mentioned in the presentation. And how can Ruckus serve as a resource for cancer patients, for cardiovascular patients, for the endocrinologists dealing with the diabetes and the cholesterol issues, all the specialists? How can we be a resource to the specialists? So we're still trying to figure that out. But Messino Cancer Center did ask me to come. So I think they weren't quite ready, honestly. They were interested, but and we weren't quite ready either, which is fine. But I think, speaking to your comment earlier, or I think we're close. I mean, I think in the next couple of years, we're going to have more systems that are just more integrated, where you're not seeing your doctor and then you're going to the cancer doctor. The cancer doctor is not talking to the primary care doctor, and the cardiovascular doctor is not talking to the cancer doctor. And we all need to coordinate care where we're all in this together. I mean, you're the epicenter of this community of care that's focused on you. And we're not quite there yet, but that's where we need to be.
Yeah.
Well, and Blue Zones addresses so much of this in terms of lifestyle. And then I know Pisgah Health is looking at Sustainable Health for All was a integrated nutritional counseling service that was offered. They're looking at expanding that, which is really at no charge. They might charge insurance eventually, but that could be transformative for everything from obesity to cancer to hypertension, because as a physician, you may or may not have time to do the integrative nutritional coaching unless you have ancillary personnel you can refer to. And this would be that kind of referral source.
Perfect. I talked to Mark Burrows, just FYI, and then he connected me to Alan Weiss, who's the chief medical officer. Talked to him. So we'll talk later, but I'd like to talk with you more about where I think that could go for. I mean, Brevard has just been really the ray of light, I think, honestly, and what they're doing down there.
Call me.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you. I may actually give you a call tomorrow. Are you around tomorrow?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if there are any other questions that come up, please feel free to email me. It's brian@ruckushealth.co, BRIAN @ruckushealth.co. Happy to share anything and everything, the slides, the resources, medical advice, books that we should read, people that we should know, anything. It's just all about the connections.
Thank you so much for the information.
My pleasure. Yeah, I really appreciate the
Great.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Hope we can
Thank
continue
you.
this. Thank you, guys. All right, everybody stay well. Go eat a plant-based supper and enjoy your meal. All right, here. Bye-bye. Good job, Suzanne. Nice. See you
Thank
soon.
you,
Bye.
everybody, for joining. I certainly want us to have a few minutes. If anybody has any, first to talk about Camp Bluebird coming up. We are going to have another Camp Bluebird this fall. We have decided for it to be virtual though, considering, just the ever evolving issues we have with COVID. So our Camp Bluebird will be on September 15th. It will be completely virtual. And I think so far, almost all of it will be live as well. So our crafts, our music, everything will be live, which will be really exciting this time, just to be able to interact with one another. And we will start registration as of today. So I will be posting the link on our Facebook page pretty soon. What now? Does somebody have a question? I heard something. Anyways, so I'll post it on the Facebook page and I'll send it out in an email later on, just so that you can get on, you can register and hopefully be a part of our next Camp Bluebird, which will be virtual, and we will send out a package just like we did last year. If you didn't get to join us last year virtually, we sent out a wonderful little package to each camper who had registered ahead of time. It had your t-shirt, it had your craft supplies, it had a yummy snack in there, and some other little goodies to just help make as much of a camp experience as we are used to having at Bon Clarkin. So look for that on our Facebook page in just a little bit. And thank you so much for joining our second lift. We'll have another one in November that will be led by some local mental health clinicians that work in oncology.
Do you have the date for that?
I believe it's November 4th, if I'm remembering correctly, but I can't look at my computer and do this at the same time. So we'll make sure to post that on the Facebook page as well.
Okay.
That is correct. It's November 4th, Sally.
Yay, my brain's working.
Good job.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Have a good evening.